Planning, Zoning, and Historical Committee special meeting on BL 2019-48. Today is Tuesday, June 30th. It is 4 p.m. And I'm going to make the motion that this committee meeting agenda constitutes essential business of the Metropolitan government, and then the meeting electronically is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Tennesseans in light of the COVID-19 outbreak. Council Lady Stiles. Did we lose her? Did she jump off?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councilman Parker. So with that, we have a motion properly seconded. I hope that y'all saw my agenda that I was able to send out yesterday. And so we're going to move on pretty quickly. I'm going to give Councilman Rosenberg a few minutes to go over his PowerPoint that he's prepared. Then we will have brief explanations and technical questions about the amendments that we have before us. They have yet again grown, and then we can have some discussion. So Councilman Rosenberg, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll work through this pretty quickly because we've been at this for a while. So, this legislation is, I think was born out of the fact that we've got a cost of living problem in Nashville, and a lot of folks are finding new ways to make ends meet and do it within reason and within their means. So this bill was introduced November 5th of last year, which is about 9 months ago. First went to the Planning Commission 8 months ago. We adopted a substitute, had more public hearings, discussion at the Planning Commission before it came back to us for a public hearing back in March, another substitute, online town hall, went before the Budget and Finance Committee during our weird second meeting of June, had another public hearing the next night into the morning, and then Planning Committee and Codes heard it last time. We had some late amendments referring to the time of night and not when they were offered. And then that brings us to now. BL 2019-48, it requires all business activity to take place indoors, preserves limitations as far as the percentage of the residents, adds a little bit of prohibition as far as the type of vehicles you can have. It adds a prohibition against commercial delivery services, and it prohibits outdoor noise as a result of the accessory use. It also allows clients within certain limitations, 3 per hour, maximum of 6 per day total. It strengthens our prohibitions on signage. It strengthens the residential nature requirements that exist now, and it requires all indoor storage, everything out of sight. It limits uses with customers to 5 specifically defined categories, but it does allow those client visits under the conditions. Makes the permits non-transferable and creates a process for revocation that doesn't exist now. It also adds protections to make sure that we don't have a bad actor try to buy up properties or something along those lines by saying that the only person who can apply for it on a property is the owner, or if the owner doesn't live there, a long-term renter. That only, no matter how many properties you own across Davidson County, you can only have one of these permits. And also even though we have another limitation that speaks to it needing to be your primary resident, it also, just as an extra layer, says you can only have one permit countywide. And an amendment that I'll be offering this coming meeting will add a sunset provision during this council term to give us an opportunity to reevaluate, or honestly, just to make folks feel more comfortable. It also adds requirements that an affidavit be provided confirming that it's compliant with any contract under which the property exists. Councilman Parker offered an amendment, and I believe will again at the next meeting add a requirement that an affidavit be provided confirming that the applicant uses the home as their primary residence. And it says that if you're a renter, the property owner needs to be okay with you having this accessory use. Again, something that doesn't exist right now with our current home occupation permit. There are several things that are the same between the existing code and the proposed law. Same section of code, it's all enforced by code. And again, the business remains an accessory use. where at least 80% of your home is used for a residence. So we have had businesses in neighborhoods since the beginning of Metro, and it was specifically allowed in the last set of code that I know somebody who's been involved in the conversation can speak to, and that will continue to be the case. Some differences right now, and under the current law, signage is limited by Chapter 17.32, which prohibits signs, but this adds an extra layer by saying that any other outdoor exhibits of business activity are prohibited. Currently, and under this law, you can have one full or part-time employee come to your home to work. This will add a prohibition proposed by Councilman Druffle that doesn't currently exist, to limit it to 5 employees who live in the home. Be very interesting anyway. Codes right now has to enforce against all businesses with client visits, along with the tens of thousands of businesses that are operating without a permit. This significantly reduces that footprint so that they can focus on the bad actors and not get caught up in things like this stuff you see at the bottom. These are quotes from Metro Codes inspectors given under an oath during the lawsuit, talking about people complaining to codes about a business because the neighbor got a new car or a couple of drops of paint got on their fence. This one codes inspector estimated that 4 out of 10 complaints match the situation. Another said that 60 to 70% of complaints about home occupations have nothing to do with the fact that they're operating a business in their home without bothering anybody, but instead that they wanted to settle a grudge. So even without acknowledging the large percentage of complaints that would no longer be necessary, we're already wiping out 70% of the demand on Metro Codes inspectors. Currently, the process for complaint is that a citizen complains about a home occupation, and the code sends an inspector out who has to do whatever he needs to do in order to observe that there's a violation taking place. And depending on the violation, that could be time and resource consuming and really unrealistic. This adds the right of folks complaining to send in photos or video showing evidence of it, and that precludes the inspector from having to go out and actually inspect it. Currently, the law says that for a home occupation, you cannot change the residential structure, or you cannot make outdoor adjustments that are non-residential in nature, but doesn't speak to anything related to the lot itself. Under this law, the residential character of the lot will have to be maintained in addition to the residential structure or house, like normal people call it. Currently and under the law, no vehicles over 1.5 tons are allowed to be associated with the business. This will add a prohibition against commercial vehicles being parked on the premises and adjacent streets. And the permitting change that we'll make will say that if you're just sitting at your computer typing, you're not going to need to go through the permitting process, which involves getting a schematic of your home, marking the areas of your home that will be used for the business, and going downtown and waiting at line and codes in order to get a home occupation permit, which is a building permit. I've got one in my window, and it's the same thing you see on construction sites. And if you're in a home, even though it's a sign really advertising that you're doing business in your home, you're required to have that in your window right now. Currently, there is no prohibition on commercial deliveries at all. If the Coke truck wants to come through and drop stuff off for somebody's business that they then take elsewhere, that's allowed. This will prohibit commercial deliveries within a neighborhood except for your typical UPS and private parcel services. The current law, of course, prohibits clients at any time. This one will say that they have to be by appointment and logged for review of codes upon request. The visits are limited from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. only, Monday through Saturday. And again, it's the 3 visits per hour and no more than 6 over the course of an entire day. That is a rundown of what the law, changes. Earlier today, you were sent an annotated version of the law so that you can go through it line by line and see exactly what it does. as well as the comparison chart, which is similar to what I just went through. The annotated version of the bill that's there includes both reference to my sunset amendment and to Councilman Parker's proposed affidavit amendment, but not any of the others that might be introduced at any point. I know there were several amendments that were voted down at in committees this past week, but those, of course, are eligible to be reintroduced. So with that, thank you, Madam Chair, and on to the next part.
Great, thank you. So I've listed the amendments that we've had before us, and that I think they multiplied, but I've got them listed, and they were also sent to you by our staff. And so what I'd like to do is the brief synopsis of them, like a 1-sentence explanation, and then technical questions on them. Councilman Parker, your amendment was voted 13 in favor, 0 against in committee. And I think the intent was to put it on that night. And so if you are okay with it, I would like to skip over your amendment because it seems like the committee and the council was comfortable with it. If you'd like to explain it and have technical questions, we can. Your amendment was that it must be the person's primary resident or primary resident.
Yes, I mean, I think we had good discussion about this in the prior committee meeting, and I'm fine with skipping discussion of it unless, we need to address it in relation to another amendment or something. I'm fine with that.
Thank you, Councilman. Okay, so that takes us to Council Lady Allen's amendment. It was voted down 0 in favor, 11 against in committee. The brief synopsis was that this would only allow 1 per block face or within 1,000 feet, whichever was shorter. Council Lady Allen, would you like to make a brief pitch on your amendment and answer technical questions?
Yes, I'll just say again that when we did the short-term rental, we did include a density limit, but it was census tract wide, and we discovered that while that was helpful and it did give us a way to sort of keep control of how many there were, that there were a couple of blocks, Hume Street and one out in Jeff Syracuse's area, that were unfortunately taken over by properties that also were high impact properties. And I'm not saying, as Councilmember Rosenberg has pointed out, these may not be high impact, so it may not matter. But it was something that in hindsight, I think we very much regretted not having done at the beginning, and it was hard to save those streets. So I just offer that again as a way to, and if there's a way to grandfather in the existing ones, I think that makes sense. The ones that are there that aren't causing trouble, but just to ensure that we don't end up with a high concentration on a single street, which can end up being high impact, and I think that would be unfortunate.
Any technical questions for Council Lady Allen? I guess raise your hand, and I'm checking. Council Lady Henderson, technical question on Council Lady Allen.
Thank you, Chair Murphy. Yeah, I guess my question for Council Lady Allen came up kind of in the context of the Planning Committee meeting. My concern about block face is in USD or UZO, that's shorter. Out here in suburbia, a block face can go on and on and on. And so with the same kind of concerns that she mentioned historically with the last legislation, I know that there are within some other amendments, also the 3% per census tract. I had also kind of suggested a potential way to address the clustering by just having an adjacency rule. I know that was not supported by the committee last time we discussed, but I don't know if Councilman Rosenberg as well as Council Lady Allen can kind of speak to. So, I mean, I appreciate, and I want to, as far as order the conversation, Chair Murphy, keep it to Council Lady Allen's amendment, but what it does somewhat open the door to is the kind of the impact and domino effect. And so I wonder in response, perhaps if Councilman Rosenberg can just speak to his thinking of why perhaps he would support or not 3% per census tract or adjacency, or basically other tools that are trying to achieve the same thing that Council Lady Allen is trying to achieve. But I would assert block face in our city county consolidated 532 square miles doesn't quite work. So that's a very
Right.
long
So, Council Lady
question.
Henderson, what I'm trying to stick to is the technical questions, and then we can have some more discussion, because I'm hoping some of these amendments might be withdrawn or something, or not need as much discussion. But I do see the relevance of some of these that are similar. I will say, I will take personal privilege here to say, as I've outed my mother many times, she works from home. And she lives on, her block face is about 10 homes. And I feel that this is extremely unfair to short block faces in that same regard. So with that, did you have a specific technical question for Council Lady Allen?
I have a technical answer. So
Lady Allen, would you like to go? You have the floor.
Thank you, I appreciate that. The way the amendment is written is it specifically says block face or 1,000 feet, whichever is shorter. So that difference in length is addressed.
Okay.
I can add grandfather so that existing businesses are left in there. I think we could deal with that piece of it if that's the issue.
Yeah, I think, okay, I appreciate that. I mean, I know we have various things in the code, 500 feet here, 600 feet there, impact, sells liquor has to be this far. I mean, I'm not personally really a fan of particular foot distances, but I mean, I still do appreciate what Council Lady Allen is trying to achieve here based on what we've seen with short-term rentals. And so, Chair Murphy, I guess then for future discussion, I still am interested to know from Councilman Rosenberg, there's not many tools in the toolkit to address this sort of clustering and impact. And I just wonder if there were any others that he had looked at.
Councilman Rosenberg, would you like to address that now? Councilman Rosenberg, did you forget how to unmute yourself?
I didn't. I didn't realize that you wanted me to answer this question right now.
Why don't we do a quick, brief answer? We've got
glad to. I think the fear about clustering and that sort of thing is based on two premises that on which I don't ascribe to. One is that folks are all going to stop, quit their jobs and go home and work. And the other is that these are going to have any sort of negative impact on the neighborhood. I think the vast majority of business that you see using this will have clients on pretty rare occasion. And, in the same example Councilman Murphy used, where you have one person who has an accounting business and decided, gets the permit because they want to be able to have somebody come during tax season a few times to drop off papers. The idea of that precluding anybody else on their street from being able to do the same or have any other sort of home business, I think would be unfortunate. And those are my concerns.
Thank you. Okay, any other technical questions on Council Lady Allen? I have a feeling we're going to touch on this topic again. Oh, I guess I should check for hands. Sorry, y'all. All right. Seeing none, we're going to move on to Councilman Druffle. Councilman Druffler, his amendment was not voted on in committee, and it requires, I want to make sure I get the summary right. It requires everyone to get a permit. Is that correct, Councilman Druffle? Would you like to give a brief summary, and then we'll do technical questions?
Yeah, very brief. Thanks, Council Lady. Really, it's to require everybody that might have a business to, get a permit. And when you think about it, you want to know if someone's next to you that might be operating a business, just for transparency's sake. There's some good preventions, I think, that are along the way. But if you don't know if someone is coming as a customer, that someone might have a business, or they might be just coming to visit, it would sort of put you on the radar of if that is a business or is it just, residence where someone's coming to visit. I think it's important that you know what's next to you and what's operating. Most businesses will probably be passive, I think, as Councilman Rosenberg has talked about. But I think it's important that if you move into a house or you're next to a house, that you have some sense of what might be going on in your neighborhood, just to be alert. So I really believe that it's important to have everybody have a permit.
Thank you, Councilman Druffle. Any technical questions on Councilman Druffle's amendment? So to be clear, Councilman Rosenberg, currently everyone has to have a permit. Right now you can't see customers, but everybody has to have a permit. And your legislation would do away with the data entry person who never sees customers. That person does not need a permit under your legislation. Is that correct?
That's right. And I think right now we know that there are there are 15,000 licensed businesses that are operating with one of these permits, because why would anybody think that to sit at your computer and hit keys, you would need if you're hitting keys to make money versus hitting keys to play a game, you would need a permit. It's frankly none of my neighbor's business why I'm at my computer. And that's removing this obstacle, I think, especially right now, is important.
Thank you. Council Lady Henderson, your hand is raised. You have the floor. Technical question on Druffle.
Yes. So to Councilman Druffle, again, this is sort of speaking to your rationale and a future amendment proposal. But there are other amendments that propose for this to be an annual permit. Also one making a distinction kind of similar to STRP, a type 1, a type 2. I would assert I concur with Councilman Rosenberg. I think there's been a lot of confusion in the community. I have never interpreted and have told constituents that, if you're just at home typing on keys, that doesn't require the home occupation. But if you have a business that you are basing in your home and all you do is type keys, but the business is based from your home, that does. And I know that's kind of this weird line, but, my thinking had been to Councilman Druffle's point around transparency. If you made the distinction like that there is a type of permit for having customers, right? So I didn't know if Councilman Druffle had looked at, there's everybody get a permit, but there's also just making a distinction, whether by type of permit or only requiring a permit. And Councilman Rosenberg, if I'm remembering correctly, your proposal only requires the permit for having the customers, correct? So, Mr. Druffle, can you just sort of speak to the distinctions and why you're just taking an approach, everyone has a permit and they're all the same? Because I think what we're all asserting is that there's a difference between I base my business here and I type on keys, and then there's, I have customers that come to my house. And from the same place of transparency, I'm just wanting to make sure that the community is clear on which is which, right?
Yeah, I think there's, when you look at it, I'm not opposed for anybody that's a graphic artist, someone that is working at home, but how that can transition and how do you differentiate that from a business? Let's just take a couple of examples. Let's say someone starts a craft production in their backyard or in their house, and then it's most businesses start slow and then move forward, or it can grow. How do you then differentiate that your neighbor is now starting to grow and produce more and more? I have nothing. I think if it's a very passive business, it's no problem. It's a matter of that can change as a business grows. And I think there has to be a sense of knowledge or presence that something could be going on and that you're just aware. And again, how do you differentiate a customer versus a friend visit? I have a neighbor that has friends visit all the time. How do you know that? And I think it's important that if I knew that my neighbor had a business, I could differentiate. That seemed a little odd to me that all of a sudden I'm getting different people all the time. So I think there's a value to know. It could be a different type of permit. I'm not looking at permitting just to, to create money or do anything. I think it's just creating an awareness to make sure that certain kinds of businesses don't grow outside of our purview and then it become a nuisance.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Druffle. Councilman Cache, you have the floor.
Thank you. So I have a question about the bill itself rather than this amendment, but it is about why or why not the amendment might be important. And so we're basically like, if the bill goes through without this amendment, there are lots of home businesses that will not be registered as home businesses anymore. Does that like change their, does it remove any like rules for them in terms of the other things that these registered home businesses will have to follow, like deliveries and signs and stuff like that?
Thank you, Councilman.
And stuff about changing residential nature.
Let me kick that over to Rosenberg real quick.
Right.
Rosenberg.
And wait, if I could say one more thing, please. So, like before we have legislation about STRs, Codes was kind of saying we couldn't enforce rules against STRs because they weren't on the book. So I guess I'm saying if we take these off the book, is there less power for Codes to enforce rules against them?
Rosenberg, you have the floor.
If you are a if you have a home occupation, you have to follow these regulations. But if you don't have customers, then you're not required to get the permit. So you're required to follow this no matter what. That doesn't change. Your second question is about enforcement. The answer is that this will reduce the enforcement burden on codes by not for example, right now we've got 15,000 businesses that we know of that do not have a home occupation permit, and Codes has to deal with every one of those right now because those are folks who have decided not to get a permit or didn't know they had to get a permit, and that's a huge burden on Codes. And it ends up with the selective enforcement I mentioned earlier, whether, taking advantage of a grudge or a new neighbor or the opportunity to shut down the competitor. By eliminating those on the invisible businesses and narrowing the footprint that Codes needs to enforce, I argue that it opens it up. Their position was that it doesn't make a difference one way or another. But I would argue that this makes it much easier enforcement for them, since number one, they have a new tool to use in photographic and video evidence. And number two, there needs to be some sort of active thing happening outside of the home in order for it to generally be something that would generate a complaint.
Councilman Cache, does that cover your question, or do you have a follow-up?
I guess target the question. So Codes wouldn't have to spend a lot of time enforcing these non-customer home businesses to get a license, but they would still have full authority to enforce rules or enforce complaints or respond to complaints that might relate to other ways that they were conducting a business in a home.
That's correct. It's Section 6A of the bill, and all it says is that businesses under these that meet these conditions do not have to acquire a permit, but they are still subservient to the entire section of code.
Councilman Cache, does that cover?
Thank you. That's yes.
Fabulous. Councilman Withers, we are on the Druffle Amendment.
Thank you. I guess one of the things that I was thinking about is that if we do have this list of folks that potentially are in violation, if we were to require that they get a permit, would there be, to Councilmember Druffle's point, would that be carried out by maybe having Codes do a mass mailing to all those addresses to say, we have observed that you have a business and you have a certain period of time to get a permit? I wanted to flesh out the how of that a little bit more if we were to require a permit of all these businesses, regardless of whether or not they have clients visiting the home. So that's a technical question on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Withers. So I do recall that with short-term rentals, and Council Lady Allen might be able to correct me, but I believe that when they enacted the short-term rentals, the legislation to begin with, they did a mass mailing similar to that to let the people know, like, hey, we know you're a short-term rental, yada, yada, yada. But right now, everybody's supposed to have a permit. So right now, everybody has a permit. And so kind of the thought process, I think, is if this passes and they don't have to have a permit, then we wouldn't have to mail to them. But I will defer to Councilman Rosenberg to see if he's got a little bit more insight on that or what Codes has said.
Codes hasn't made any comment about how they want to deal with. I mean, I don't think that there are any plans to deal with under the current code the fact that most people are operating without any kind of permit because they're not bothering anybody. They shouldn't really need one, in my opinion, anyway. So this would, I think relieve that matter entirely. And beyond that, I mean, I wouldn't want to speak. I think Councilman Druffle needs to speak to his intent rather than me.
Councilman Druffle, you have the floor.
Okay. I don't know. I'd have to check what's the best way to communicate this. And I really don't have an answer for that. The intent is to just create a higher degree of awareness that businesses that are currently operating, again, not concerned about businesses that are operating in a passive interest, but those that may have that opportunity to grow so that neighbors would have a sense of if there's a problem. I understand now they're operating a business. I think it just creates a higher degree of awareness in the neighborhood in case something does change. So probably there would be a value of sending out, they need a permit. Again, I'm not looking at anything more than just creating an awareness. It's not trying to create, a secondary income. It's a matter of creating awareness so that as problems could occur, codes would understand it's a problem with a business, not a problem with, in another section.
All right. I would like to note at this time that it is 4:32, and also any mass mailing like that would have a fiscal note. Councilman Withers, does that wrap you up so we can move on to Councilman Johnson on Druffle? I'm sorry, Council Lady Johnson. Councilman, sorry.
Hi, can y'all hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can. You have the floor on Druffle.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I just wanted to ask if anybody, if this Councilman Druffle has looked at the fiscal note as far as what that revenue would create if, because and Councilman Rosenberg, correct me if I'm wrong, but when several months ago when this first came out, all district council people had a printout of all the illegally operating businesses. And I think that was queried by businesses that were registered to the address without a permit. Is that correct?
Councilman Rosenberg.
Okay. And so then, so obviously,
I lost her.
There was 15,000.
I think I lost you, Council Lady Johnson.
So I just was wondering if Mr. Druffle had looked at it from.
I think I got you.
Can you hear me now? No. We're on the interstate, so I have a bad signal, I guess. Can y'all hear me?
Right. I think I understand the question.
Well, if you understand her question, please try to answer it. You're welcome to attempt.
I've not looked into the fiscal note or the amount of fees to try to surface. Wasn't my intention to do that, to ensure that there's a permit for every business. It's simply to create a higher degree of awareness in our neighborhoods of who may be operating a business and for what reason. Again, a lot of the businesses are genuine, they're passive. It's the businesses that we see that could grow. We just need to be aware as the neighbors. And that was the intent, not for any fiscal component.
Okay.
Okay, any other technical questions on Druffle? Seeing none. Councilman Withers, is your hand still up or is that your cat? Thank you. Council Lady Johnson and Council Lady Henderson, I'm thinking that we could take your three together. The first one was voted 0 in favor, 11 against. It creates the type 1 and type 2 permit. This second one was voted 0 in favor, 10 against. No type 2s adjacent to another type 2. And then the third was not voted on either because I accidentally erased my notes or it is a new amendment. And that is a yearly, basically the summary I put together was yearly permit, renewal necessary, and affidavit that you're still in compliance. And so I'm going to, just in case, Council Lady Johnson, you are on the interstate. Council Lady Henderson, do you want to give a brief explanation further of these so we can jump into technical questions? Or did I cover it in the summary?
You did cover it. I think probably for purposes of discussion, I don't know if we want to take kind of the permitting piece, because that builds on what Councilman Druffle had proposed. So, again, this is, I think, in that same space of just kind of awareness of what we're working with and what the impacts are and how many of these there are. I think to Councilman Druffle's point, having the annual permit, just from, I think if you were to make the distinction between, a type 1, a type 2, trying to kind of have these, low, no impact kind of currently as operating, to Councilman Rosenberg's point, versus, you are going to be having customers to your home. I think as currently proposed, Councilman Rosenberg, is it correct that this is a one and done? Even if you're having customers to your home, you're getting a one-time permit? Or has that been amended?
Councilman Rosenberg,
Yeah, no, that's the same as it is under the current, one and done.
Okay. Right. And so I guess, again, that distinction of, I respect and appreciate that in the kind of low impact space, but for something that is new, that we're wanting to make sure that we kind of, going forward communicate about, or we have a certain accountability around, or we're trying to understand the impact, I would just assert, again, I know there's certain number kind of pieces to this. So I respect and appreciate the distinction that Councilman Rosenberg is making, that these are kind of two different types of things. And I think their impact is less. And so I don't necessarily think that whether it's everyone needs a permit or there are two different types of permit, such that the has customers is just a distinction. That also is kind of similar to Councilman Druffle's point is, I appreciate, Councilman Rosenberger, you added the notice provision that I requested that's similar to short-term rental, because I think neighbors, if you made an investment in a residential only neighborhood, and then all of a sudden there's a lot more cars over there, what's going on? It just sort of begs the question, whereas if you've been notified, and then from a just transparency and data perspective, I think when you have, I guess I would just assert that I see some merit in making this permit for those that have customers annual. And so I know that the committee at the time did not concur with that, but I think that's important. So.
Thank you. Council Lady Henderson, before I move on to other people, Councilman Rosenberg has put on, or is putting on, a sunset, which you had suggested as well. And how does the yearly permit work with that sunset? So say in February of 2023, I moved to Nashville, I get my permit. What's the point of me even getting a permit if it's just potentially sunsetting in a month? I'm not, please, can you flesh out for me? I mean, why don't we just do a 3-year permit, or like a permit until the sunset day? Could you flesh that out? Have y'all put any thought into that?
I did not know at the time if the sunset amendment would be a friendly one. And so I guess I have just sort of thought about these as, distinct things, but I absolutely acknowledge that from a timing perspective, when you get that permit, I think there would just have to be some special, some language added to the permit, which I think is important from a transparency standpoint for people to understand that this, is enabled by this particular legislation, which has a sunset. That's just sort of fair notice for the community. So I guess I would just say, and again, I'm not asserting that these should have any sort of onerous cost to them. So, there might be some people for whom, if it were to be sunsetted, your annual permit became a 9-month permit, but I don't think that's insurmountable. I think that's just in, what codes and already does is just you put particular explanatory text on the face of the permit.
Gotcha. Councilman Rosenberg, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm pretty strongly opposed to the idea of requiring people who don't have customers to have permits, but if folks see value in having the permit be annual instead of indefinite, I'd leave that to the body to decide. I don't see any danger in it.
Thank you.
Councilman
sorry, Councilor Henderson.
So I was just going to clarify. So would be potentially supportive of annual permit, but for businesses with customers only. Okay. And then would you then likewise be amenable to kind of making that distinction, right? So, I mean, I guess we have to codify, one does not require a permit, one does, or what are your thoughts on that?
That's already in the bill.
Okay, fair point. Got it. Okay.
I think we just saw a compromise happen. Councilman Withers, you have the floor.
Thank you. On the subject of permits, I am inclined to agree with my colleague, Councilmember Henderson, that primarily I'm really interested in having permits for those that do have clients visiting the home. So I like that piece. I just want to sort of go back over what we have experienced with short-term rentals, which did have annual permits. We encountered lots of folks.
Councilman Withers, we're at 4:42, and we've got a few more amendments. So let's come back to that during discussion moving forward at the end if we have time.
This was a technical question about the annual permit requirement.
Go for it. Quickly.
So what it got to is what we ran into with short-term rentals is that folks were operating without a permit, and they would have a hearing, and there would be a denial period if they got it, or they were operating and forgot to renew. If an annual permit, and this may already be in the bill, but if the annual permit were required, how would those kinds of issues, which largely often are people not getting a permit or forgetting to renew it, how would those be resolved?
Councilman Rosenberg.
Oh, sorry.
Councilor Henderson.
So, under the language in the bill right now, if your permit is revoked for any reason, there's a 1-year revocation period. Came from Councilmember Druffle.
Councilman Withers, does that answer your question? Okay, thanks. Councilwoman Johnson, we are on your amendments.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so my first amendment that I wanted to kind of discuss was the different types of permits. When I first looked at this, I didn't realize that Councilman Rosenberg was changing the law so that businesses that do not see clients does not need to get a home occupancy permit any longer. I disagreed with that, and I'm more along the lines of if you have a business registered to your home, you need to get a permit. So my purpose in separating out the type 1 versus the type 2 is that I felt like the type 1 that doesn't see customers is not something that we would need to in the future limit if we had issues that things needed to be changed, that the type 1 permits would just really not need to be affected. And so that's why I separated those two things out. And so if the committee and the body disagrees with every business needing a permit, then obviously the type 1 and type 2 would not be necessary at that point. I also wanted to limit, and I used the census tract, which I think apparently obviously did not work out very well with the short-term rentals, but I would like to have more discussion on how we can prevent the clustering, like we're saying. I think we've already talked about that. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about why, my reasoning behind separating out. And I also, to your point, Council Lady Murphy, with your mother and her business, for example, that she might see a customer once a year, or something very cyclical like an accountant, that would just, once a year you'll see a few clients, people dropping things off. In my opinion, that's not something that would need a type 2 permit. And so we would have to figure out a threshold of, like, if you're only seeing on average 1 client per month or something like that, then that doesn't meet the threshold of a type 2 type permit. So that was something else I kind of wanted for the committee to discuss. And then the last one was just to have it be renewed every year. So.
All right. So, Councilman Withers, is it your hand or hanging Chad? All right. Council Lady Allen.
Thank you. Just a technical comment. I would say on the short-term rental, the 3% cap did keep things from going totally off the rails, because there were a whole lot of areas where we were being pushed to get rid of the cap and let that go up to 4 or 5. And had we done that, we'd have been in even worse shape. So again, I will say I think there's some benefit to having some kind of thing. And again, back to my bill, that one was just for those that see customers. I forgot to mention that. So just wanted to add that information.
Okay, I'm sorry, I had that wrong. So, Council Lady Allen, your block face 1,000 feet is just for those that see customers.
That is correct. Thank you. I should have thought that point out. That's important.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Okay, all right. So, Council Lady Johnson, your hand is still up. Is that because you're in the car? I'm taking that as a yes. Council Lady Van Rees, you have the floor for a technical question on the Johnson-Henderson variety pack.
I believe my question may have been answered, but just a point of clarity in regard to the folks doing business in their home needing a permit would not apply to people that are doing work from home. I think that the point of clarity in regard to that for the general public, because it'll be quite some time before some people are able to return to the office. They are working from home, and the business license may be held by their employer, but they are working from home. I just wanted to kind of clarify this entire conversation for the majority of people that may be confused by it.
Thank you, Council Lady Van Rees. That is actually something that I asked when this conversation started last year. I asked our attorney, John Cooper, because my roommate works from home 2 days a week. And I was like, do we need to get a home permit for him? And John Cooper, that is in our office, said no, because that is considered telecommuting. But I do think good note for the next council term is that as soon as you get elected, you get your election certificate and you get your home occupation permit potentially, right? Just kidding, little trying to make some light of this. Okay, so
I've had a business license since 1986 when I moved to Nashville and do work out of my home, but I never have people come to visit. So I'm trying to make a point of clarity in regard to the intent with Mr. Rosenberg, in that we have an unbelievable amount of people working from home. And so this original conversation has moved into the realm of just a point of clarity to let people know that just because you're working from home does not mean that you have a business in it.
All right. So I think that Councilman Rosenberg, you have the floor.
Thank you. And thanks, Councilmember Van Rees. That's a great point, and it really speaks to the arbitrary nature of requiring permits of people who work from home and don't have customers over, but only if their business license is registered at their house. You can do the exact same activities, but if you don't have if the business license is registered somewhere else, then you're free of it, which is pretty bizarre, and I'm glad that this is going to clean that up.
All righty. So I think that brings us to, oh, wait, Nancy, you still have your hand up. Are you? I lost you. Okay, I think Nancy's fine. So we will move on to Councilman Bradford. Your amendment was voted 0 in favor, 10 against. It was that these home occupations must be located on an arterial street. Do you want to move forward with that amendment, or what is your plan?
I'm not going to be moving forward with that at this time.
Wonderful. Not wonderful for, I'm just in the time-saving sense. Thank you. We're at 10:51. Rosenberg, you have a sunset amendment that I believe went on or is going on. And then we will move to Council Lady Allen, Henderson's amendment. I don't know if we voted on it. I didn't write it down clearly. It sunsets the same date that Rosenberg has proposed, so clearly that is a compromise that we will be moving forward with, but it delays the start until September 1st, 2020. Council Lady Henderson, do you want to move forward with that in discussion?
I do. The combined amendment with a delayed effective date of September 1st and the sunset were approved by the committee. And so, again, I do appreciate Councilman Rosenberg in the spirit of compromise also having kind of the similar sunset. But I guess the reason I am proposing a delayed effective date, and again, it's just September 1, is in my experience of doing, countywide legislation of the magnitude that Councilman Rosenberg is engaged in here from a process standpoint, as far as community information, anything that needs to kind of happen at codes for getting the permits, what system that goes into. I've just found, and maybe Councilman Rosenberg can speak to this, but the ITS side of the implementation of any particular bill that has kind of technical specifications, and I guess, in my mind, I know Councilman Rosenberg's initial approach didn't necessarily have as much of kind of the permitting factor in it. But Councilman Rosenberg, if you can maybe speak to, my delayed effective is just basically something I've always done with countywide legislation that has any sort of, departmental implementation. And so if you could maybe speak to if that's work that you've already done or why you don't think a September 1 effective date would be prudent.
Councilman Rosenberg, you have the floor. We have 7 minutes, and so I might go ahead and try to share my PowerPoint while y'all wrap this up.
Okay.
We can still discuss this in committee. Don't worry. It's not over. It's just this meeting is over.
It's because we already have home occupation permits, and while we're changing the requirements for them and saying that who needs to get them, it's the same permit that codes will be prepared to issue. And my preference would be that folks can get to work as soon as possible.
Was there any good discussion?
Apologize, I was speaking without with the mute on. So Councilman Rosenberg, then you're just asserting that because there's already a home occupation permit established in the system at codes, even though it might be changing what it's called or some of the information that's on it or whatever, as far as that you don't think that's going to require anything on the ITS side as far as how that permit's generated. You just think data passage, boom, it's ready to go.
Oh, holy cow. Yes, as this slide right here shows, I think everything is under control. No, yeah, I think that they'll be prepared. So I'll verify with codes, but I believe they'll be prepared to issue home occupation permits as soon as it's signed into law.
Okay, thank you.
All right, great. Sorry, I thought it would take me longer and I wouldn't be able to figure it out. So, Council Lady Allen, you any questions? We are now, I believe that wraps up all of our amendments, and so we are now on Council Lady Henderson. Yes, that wrapped up your last amendment. Again, moving forward, we do have committee to discuss this in next Tuesday, because we're going to spend every Tuesday together from now on. But Council Lady Allen, any final thoughts?
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Murphy. Again, just to share some wisdom from 6 years ago when I did this, I would encourage the council member to have a conversation with both IT and codes and just ask them if they want some kind of rollout possibility. We ended up doing a 30-day rollout, one per district, which may be overkill for what you're doing, but I know that they would appreciate having the conversation of saying, how do you think this will work for y'all? So I think it's a good suggestion. I don't know that it has to be written into the bill, but it made a huge difference for those short-term rentals. So I just throw that thought out there. Thank you.
All right. So I think we've got a lot of feedback today. I think we found some good common ground that hopefully Councilman Rosenberg and our legal team that has been on the call can kind of bundle together. And if you have further questions on that legislation, please submit them to Hannah, and that way we can be a little bit more prepared for next committee meeting where we'll discuss this again. Council Lady Henderson, final thoughts before I hand over control to Councilman Rosenberg.
Yes, I just wanted to thank you, Council Lady Murphy, for hosting this. Colleagues, I guess the only good thing about all this WebEx stuff that we're doing, but I really wish we could work this way more often, on bills like this that are pretty complex. And Council Lady Allen has experience from previous. We all live in different parts of the county and bring a different perspective. So I really appreciate how Councilman Rosenberg has listened to us and adopted some of those things along the way. And, I hope for major legislative efforts that we can work like this more frequently and have kind of these work sessions online like this. So thank you for hosting this. Thank you.
All right. And so that's going to conclude our special committee on for planning today. And I will turn it over to Councilman Rosenberg to chair rules. And I guess if somebody needs to tell us we need a recount or anything, please, whoever.
Yeah, let's take 2 minutes here since it was noticed for 5 o'clock, and then we can kick off.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.